Unit is rigor, devastating.
All right, welcome. This is my Eradicators list for premium. This is the same list that would have taken me to Japan, but didn't. Took me only the top 8, which, you know what, is what we all wanted at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's so funny.
We'll start off with the main boss for Vowing Swords. He is, personally, what I feel is what makes the deck, you know, it's bread and butter. Spreads the power around, plays the mind game with the opponent on if they want to throw more cards in the bind zone, because if they do, you know, it fuels your stun versus fuels more cards. 1 Eradicator Dragonic Descendant Sigma as a powerhouse restander that you can stack your triggers on, put on the Excel marker. Very just overall good beat stick on your kill turns. And then after that we run the 3 Dragonic Descendants, which on riding a Vowing Sword and then going into, you know, your stun verses or maybe one of the Vanquisher strides, you know, just really solidifies the deck because he makes those turns just one step more powerful, in my opinion. So on to your grade 2s. 4 Unruly Dragons, which a fantastic card because it intercepts and is essentially a Denial Griffin on an interceptor, but your opponent can see it coming. But your opponent has to play around this card. They have to play around an 8K promo card from like 7 years ago, bro.
Yeah, that's great.
Card that's 2 cents and I still never received one.
Yeah.
God.
2 cents, goddamn.
You can find out more about that in our podcast we're gonna upload soon.
We run, this deck runs 4 Spark Rain Dragons. So this isn't what I ran in the list, in the original list. I would have ran 3 Zuitons instead. Zuiton, he's a good draw. He replaces himself by the end of the turn, but in my opinion, Spark Rain just gets more power. He scales better with the game, so that's why he's at 4. He would have been at 3 on the deck list, and if you see it on the deck log, but now he's been bumped up to 4. And also with those grade 2s, we cut Cho-Oh. Cho-Oh is very good restander, very good on-place effect. But the only problem in my eyes that I see with Cho-Oh is he himself does not get the power. So you want to essentially put all the triggers, everything, all the markers from Vowing Sword, all the triggers from that, you know, your drive checks, critical stuff like that, to beef him up and make him a threatening unit. So I would rather prefer cards that do that on their own, like, you know, Spark Rain, that, you know, beef themselves up. And then for the last grade 2s, Lightning Whip Eradicator Suhyo. So he is just a very good on-place, bind something, cycle something in your hand that maybe you don't need at that moment. And then on the marker, he essentially is a 19K attacker. So he's a solid attacker, gives you choice of cards. Overall, pretty good. And let me see, to your grade 1s, 2 Anastasia PGs, because Thunderstrike 4, draw a card. Who doesn't like that? It's free. 4 Demolition Dragon, because this card is free. Like, it just on hit, draw a card, and then you can do more stuff if you want, but draw a card.
Frame 1, draw card.
Frame 1, draw. Literally, if you get 2 of them, it's just turn 1. If you go second, what do you do?
It's very gross.
3 Mighty Boat Dragoons. Yeah, he's a free 5K basically on most turns, and he can also make sure you ride into the right grade 3, because you know you don't want to really ride Descendant first. You always want to go Vowing Sword first into Descendant, or Vowing into Vowing, just because Vowing is so much of pressure on himself. This wasn't in the deck profile or in the deck list. It would have been part of the grade 2s that I cut from earlier. But it's the grade 1 pitch stride fodder for Eradicators. So it's just simple stride fodder, makes it so you don't have to discard a Descendant, discard the Sigma, and it can also fetch for the next one, or if you need to get the Descendant for next turn, you know, set up your next plays, basically. And last of the grade 1s is your New Scoos. New Scoos is just too good in Eradicator deck. It's just, you search for basically anything in the top 5 because you should be running mostly Eradicators in this deck. It's an Eradicator deck. I don't know what you want. For the triggers, 1, over trigger. Drag Vita, very good, especially when your front row Vanguard is pretty beefy. So that's a good restander. 3, Heal Guardians. The list for top 8 had 4 of them, but I cut the 1 for the Eradicator heal just because it's fetchable with New School. Maybe if you want that as a early game pressure so you can let your opponent know that you're gonna have a G guard ready, or you can set yourself up for a G guard when you're at grade 3. If you don't, maybe naturally draw 1 or drive check it. Criticals, we run 3 of the End of Souls, 4 stride crits. Stride crits at 4 and these at 3 because you mainly want the stride fodder. You don't want to be discarding your grade 3s because into your next turn they can be, your power play, your stride fodders. This deck doesn't naturally draw a lot on its own. So these save your grade 3s. Last things are 2 PG draw triggers, which we play, in place of the other 2, just because, we can guard restrict, and 2 more draw triggers because this deck needs to draw more. This in the top 8 list, it would have been these 2, but I play the D ones now because I didn't know they existed when I wrote that list. To say the least. And then I get told 5 minutes later, why didn't I play these? And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean?
Live and learn.
Live and learn.
Wait, we're forgetting 1 card.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. My favorite card. Where's my card? Oh, here it is. The starter. So the starter, I don't play the V starter that's on ride, get a quick shield. I play Hard Rod. Hard Rod Draco Kid. Rest this card, bind, or your opponent chooses a card from the graveyard to bind it. It is a very good early game bind card to start the engine. So against order bugs, it forces them to guard a lot earlier than they need to because they can't just set up the book. They have to set up the book and throw more cards in the bind, or else they have to bind the book, which isn't what they want to do. Against shadows, early ritual is gone. Basically, anything that rides the grade 1, grade 3 searcher, if they hit a grade 3, congratulations, you're gonna have Thunderstrike 1. It just sets you up early game, and then once you're at 3, it can kill something else on your grade 3 turn by itself. Plus, I like the fact that Hard Rod binds just immediately out the gate. So you could already set up yourself up by Thunderstrike 2 or 3, and by Stunverse, you're at Thunderstrike 4, so you already draw 2.
So you can.
Onto the G-Zone. 3 Stunverse Dragons. Honestly, you can do 2. But 3 is just the extra punch in the face that seals the deal. I don't think I really went into much else at Springfest, but Stunverse kind of carries the clan. Because you go Stunverse into Vowing Sword sees all those binds, and congratulations, you now have Beefy Field. And then, even against matches that, should scale harder, the restriction matches, like Link Joker, this card saves you because you scale infinitely harder than they do. But that's a broken card, and I'm not sure what we're going to do with it.
Okay.
We also play 2 Akuma Lich. I don't know how to say this card. Akonitum Linchu. An Eradicator Stride. Not what I played in the top 8s. I played 2 Fulgurates, but I've cut them entirely because...
It sucks.
Goddamn.
Okay, yes and no. He's another version of, what is it called? V-Buster, but it's
shittier.
A little bit shittier, a little bit more costed, but he gets an extra drive check, he gets an extra crit.
So he sucks.
Yeah, kinda. I like this one a little more just because you can actually play the bind denied game, because that's the one thing that does stop this deck is being bind denied. So your stun verses don't really do anything. So if maybe you don't even have anything to bind, so if you're at Thunderstrike 0 and they played that game against you, you go into this and you would just Counterblast 1, draw yourself a card, or kill 2 units, and if you do, you still get your triple drive. So you're technically drawing 4. Could be worse, but you know what? For the moment, until we get that new stride, this is the best we got, in my opinion.
Yes.
Then we run 2 voltages, which is your kill stride. You only need them at 2 because you just flip the 1 and your front row gets 30 to 40k. But if you don't really kill him on that turn, you kind of deserve to lose. Because it's kind of being given to you. So we run 1 V-Buster. So this is a weird one because V-Buster is a persona flip, but we only play him at 1. And he's only at 1 because we only flip him with stun burst on the first stride. So I only want to do that because of the name.
Because max rarity.
Because max rarity as well. We're pimping out the G-Zone. And the name Vanquisher. Because we also play 1 V-Max. V-Max says that for every Vanquisher card face up in the G-Zone, it battles another unit. When you're on this turn, the most... What's the word? The hardest rear guard to hit is the one behind the Vanguard, because not really many things in Narukami can touch behind the Vanguard. So you want to go... Using Narukami is only the front row rear guards, and then pushes up whatever's behind them. With this one, if you have the V-Buster face up and go into V-Max, you give yourself that opportunity to kill whatever behind the Vanguard and then kill them with the V-Max or do them 1 damage to guarantee it. So it's essentially just guarantees the V-Max to do itself 1 damage because that's the only reason you would go into it. Then 1 Vrachma. Just for Drachma, you know, if you really feel like... Honestly, no. You could do 2 V-Maxes. You could do a 4th, what is it? Stunverse if you feel like... If you have the money. Honestly.
You just want to flex.
Okay, actually, you know what? No, let me say something real quick. You don't need these cards in this deck because you could just run 2 Fulgurates. Because I understand the market right now. These cards are impossible to find. These cards would have been like 20 or 30 bucks, but you cannot find them on the market. So if you can't find them, we're not setting up the market. If you can't find voltages, just use Fulgurates as an alternative because he might be a worse alternative, but he's an alternative.
Or just go full Stunverse.
Or full Stunverse, but that you might deck yourself.
Go full Stunverse.
And then last but not least, the GB8 because you want to it's fun to GBA somebody. It's fun to come back from a bell turn when they delete your bind zone and then you say, okay, I want it back.
Put it right back.
Put it right back, and then you just kill them because you bind their bell most times. Last things are the G guards. 1 Ractome because Ractome's pretty good. If this deck is horrible at drawing most times, so you want as much card selection as possible. 2 Bulwarks because he's a big beefy G-Guard that can just wipe out your opponent's front row if you feel like it. And then 2 Impedes because Impede is an unfair G-Guard that just your opponent has to play around. Like you have to do little thinking if you have GB1 and a G-Guard in hand because then your opponent has to think on their turn about what you might have.
The fact that double impede is a strategy that exists.
Yeah, and this is the most Narukami list is double impede because it's just the best G-Guard we have. But yeah, this is Narukami's. Very aggressive, draws a bunch of cards. Not very fun to play against as I'm told, but you know what? To play as, very fun. Oh, there's a story behind these pieces of shit. And...
I love how that's all you have to say about it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. That's all you can say.
No, it's not a... Mighty Bolt Dragoon is, in my opinion...
Don't look at me.
So I'm sorry, we're having a personal crisis now.
He dropped my SP deck.
Oh, no!
Dude, oh my god.
It's like dropping my newborn child.
You just watch the cards.
No!